Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with the next video in the alphabet series. We've arrived at the letter N. If you want to see the earlier videos in this series, I put a link up here. Let's see what your suggestions were for the letter N. William Squire said, why don't you make a video on Jan Nepomniachtchi? And William and Mr. T said, why not a video on the knight, the letter N? William wanted to see a smothered mate between world champions. I have not been able to find one. John Nunn was Roger Berryman's suggestion. Roger comes from the UK, as does John Nunn, hence Roger's suggestion. Joey P, Nikolai Kovalenko and Buxi Singh suggested the great Rashid Neshmetinov. And Mr. T said Hikara Nakamura. Igor and Buxi said Nomen Neskio. I don't know my name. Of course, Nomen Neskio has played a lot of games in the early centuries of chess when the names of the players were not known. Mieczysław Miguel Najdorf was a suggestion by Scoey Jordan, Mateus Penteado and Stephen James, and Scoey has to help me with the pronunciation of that Polish first name. The Tournament of Nottingham 1936 was Bent's suggestion. I decided to go with the great Najdorf. Miguel Najdorf, born Moshe Mendel Mieczysław Mikel, I've never seen anybody with so many first names, was born on April 15th, 1910 in Poland and passed away on July 4th, 1997 in Spain. He was a Polish-Argentinian grandmaster, a leading world player in the 1940s and 1950s, and is famous for the Najdorf variation of the Sicilian, one of the most popular of all chess openings, and we saw many Najdorfs being played in a recent Wijk aan Zee Tata Steel tournament. Najdorf was the oldest of 5 children, 4 sons and 1 daughter of Gdalik and Raisa Najdorf. His mother's maiden name was Rosklein. When he was 14, he visited his school friend Ruben Friedelbaum's house, and his violinist father taught him chess. Najdorf was immediately hooked, read books about the game and was soon able to give his teacher rook odds. That's quite impressive. I have many chess students and I'm happy that I don't have to give any of them rook odds yet. If you're interested in receiving chess training, then put a message underneath this video and I will contact you. When Najdorf was 22 years old, he drew 2 games against Alexander Aljochin. A musician friend introduced his fiancée Genia to Mikel, but Mikel and Genia fell in love, and Genia broke off her engagement and instead married Mikel. They had 1 daughter called Lucia. When Najdorf boarded a ship for the Buenos Aires Olympiad in 1939, Genia was ill with influenza and chose not to accompany him. A big decision. That Olympiad changed his life dramatically because in the middle of the Olympiad on September 1st, 1939, World War II broke out after the Germans invaded Poland. The Olympiad was still played to the end, but after the Olympiad, Najdorf decided to stay in Argentina. He thus escaped the Holocaust in Europe, but his wife, his child, his mother and 4 of his siblings were all killed by the Nazis. Najdorf knew about the death of his wife and child before 1945, but in an attempt to contact family and friends after the war, he decided to play a sensational blindfold exhibition in São Paulo in Brazil in 1947, hoping that news of this exhibition would spread to Germany, Poland or Russia and somehow reach his family. Najdorf played blindfold against 45 opponents simultaneously, winning 39 games, losing 2 and drawing 4. But he did not hear from his family. In 1944, Najdorf became an Argentinian citizen and changed his name to Miguel. In April 1947, he met Adela, a daughter of Russian Jewish immigrants. They got married after only a few weeks of courtship. Adela was 11 years younger than Miguel. They had 2 daughters, Mirta and Liliana. Liliana describes her father as a mixture of extremes, violent temper but compassionate and loving, selfish at times but also generous, jovial and bon vivant, but also sad because of the terrible losses of the Holocaust. Adela died in 1977, an inoperable intestinal tumor. Not long after Adela died, Najdorf married again to Rita, who had been a widow for 12 years. Najdorf had met Rita and her husband Jacobo, a keen chess player, soon after he had arrived in Argentina. And by the way, the story is that Jacobo died at a chessboard. Between 1949 and 1975, Najdorf won the Argentinian national championship 7 times. At Olympiads, he played on first board for Argentina. From 1950 to 1954, they finished 3 times second at the Olympiads behind the Soviet Union. Najdorf's individual successes include tournament victories at Prague, Venice, Bled in Slovenia, Amsterdam, Mar del Plata and Havana. In 1950, the World Chess Federation awarded him the Grandmaster title. According to the historical ratings, from 1946 to 1948, Najdorf was number 2 in the world, behind Michael Botvinnik. But in the 1970s, he was still one of the world's best players. Najdorf had the habit of asking other players about his own game during rounds. What do you think about my position? Am I better or worse? Once he even approached a player who was standing near his board. What do you think about my position? Am I better or worse? But the person asked remained remarkably silent. Najdorf had absent-mindedly asked his opponent, Isaac Boleslavsky, if his position was better or worse. And that is quite funny. Najdorf was also a successful businessman. In the 1940s, he obtained a license to become the sole importer of seamless lady stockings, and later he was a representative for insurance and financial companies, and in the 1950s he earned a lot of money in the oil business in Venezuela. Najdorf died on July 4th, 1997 at the University Hospital in Malaga in Spain due to complications during an operation. There is one other anecdote that I think is about Najdorf, but I could not find it when preparing for this video. Maybe one of the viewers knows this. It's about Najdorf playing Blitz against another Grandmaster, and that Grandmaster makes a mistake and starts to curse himself. And then Najdorf speaks the words, "I don't want to play with you anymore. You have just insulted my friend." Anyway, we're going to look at a game from the great Polish-Argentinian legend. It was a game played in 1930 and Najdorf had the black pieces, so we're going to look at it from the black side. And it was a game suggested by Scoey Jordan because it is the Immortal Polish game. Najdorf's opponent was Glucksberg and it was a 10-player all-play-all tournament held in Warsaw, the capital of Poland. White opened with d4 and Najdorf played the Dutch. c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, knight f3 and d5. Najdorf plays the Stonewall. Here g3 is a setup to fianchetto that bishop, but in this game white plays e3. Also fine. c6, bishop d3, bishop d6, both players castled. White played the knight to e2 and Najdorf develops his queen's knight. Here knight f4 is the best move according to the engine and there are other good moves. But on move 9, white makes a mistake. He plays knight g5 instead, putting his finger on that weak spot on e6, but it's not a good move. And Najdorf found the refutation. Bishop takes ace-2 check is surprising but very strong. Because if you take the bishop, if you accept the Greek gift, then there is knight g4 check, and that is giving check to the king and attacking the knight on g5. So king g1, queen takes g5, and black has won a pawn. But after bishop takes ace-2 check, you are not obliged to capture the bishop. This is chess, not drafts. So white played king h1. And that looks like a very good move, because he now has 2 threats. He's threatening knight takes e6, and that's a fork on rook and queen. And also, white is threatening to play g2, g3, trapping the bishop. So white is threatening to trick the trickster. Does the standard combination of winning a pawn blow up in black's face? Well, it doesn't, because Najdorf had seen further. He played knight g4 here, and that's protecting the bishop and attacking the knight. f2, f4 was white's move, defending white's knight on g5 and cutting off the escape route of black's bishop. That's a good move. You cannot take on e6 instead with that fork, because then there is queen h4, And if you take the material, you get checkmated. Bishop anywhere, king takes, and checkmate. So after knight g4, white played f4 instead of taking on e6. Queen e8, good move. Black is bringing lots of pieces to the king side. g3 from white, creating an escape route for the king. Queen h5, king g2, and we can now see that white has surrounded black's bishop and threatens to win it with rook h1, knight to f3, and then taking on h2. What can black do? Well, he can play bishop g1, exclamation mark, sacrificing the bishop in order to continue the attack on white's king. Because if you take that bishop with the king, it is mate on the spot. This is checkmate. If you take the bishop with the rook, then the game only lasts one move longer. Check, king f1 or king f3, and checkmate. So after bishop g1, you cannot take that bishop with the king or the rook, but you can take it with the knight, and that is what white Glucksberg played. Queen h2 check came anyway, king f3 only move, and now look at this move, e6, e5, the only winning move. Black wants to blast away the protection around white's king. White has to take, as otherwise e5, e4 check will lead to checkmate. So you have to take on e5. Knight d takes e5 check, you have to take again, knight takes e5 check, and king f4, which is the only legal move. Knight g6 check, and king f3, only legal move, and now what? A move repetition, or can black win this game? Black can win this game with f4, which is threatening knight e5, which is checkmate, and also bishop g4 is a big threat. White took on f4 to take that knight e5 checkmate out of position, but bishop g4 check is still there. If you play king e3, that will cost white the queen. And if you take on g4, which white is in this game, then there is knight e5 check. And the nice thing about this Polish Immortal is that black has sacrificed all four of his minor pieces. You have to take the knight, there's no other legal move, and after f takes e5, all four black's minor pieces are off the board, but he has a checkmate in one. Do you see it? Yes, checkmate with a pawn, always very special. h7, h5 is checkmate in 22 moves. Wow, what a game indeed by the great Najdorf, a true immortal of the legendary Grandmaster. The next video in this series will be on the letter O. Please let me know your suggestions for that letter in the comment section. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.